Hey, Biggs, thanks for joining us today. As a way to get us started, why don't you give us some background on yourself?
Before I came to Bunzel R3, I sold wine for a company called Southern that got eventually turned into Southern Glazer Wine and Spirits when they bought Glazer. But I worked them for maybe a on and off collective of 12 years. I started as merchandiser, worked my way up to sales associate, then worked my way into sales. And that was me just running around from grocery store to grocery store all over Oregon. Like sometimes I would get the route where they say, guess what? You're driving 3 hours south to go merchandise Fred Meyer and Walmart and then driving back. Okay. So, I'm used to driving all over creation, but I sold wine and beer for a little while and spirits for a little while, but collectively wine for about 12 years. Did some other stuff in between there, but that's pretty much the lion's share of my sales career before I came to Bunzel R3. And I don't regret that either.
Yeah, I hear you. A lot of people I talked to that have started off in wine and liquor sales, a lot of merchandising, a lot of displays, right?
Yeah, you never quite stop. Even when the busy season's over, like right after the holidays, you think, oh, I made it through. It's like, nope, now you got to clean up your mess. Now you got to live with all the product that you sold. So you got to take everything down. You're always kind of living and moving with your product that you sold because you're always kind of married to it.
Yeah, that's always a fun time, right? What did you enjoy most about that, selling wines and liquors and doing displays?
Um,
Or
actually,
did you?
I really like doing the displays a lot actually because it kind of let you creatively, well, because you could, how you would make your sales pitches, of course the store's going to buy wine, but who are they going to buy it from and why? So you had to say, I'm going to build this display for you, or I'm going to, pitch this into the store, or I'm going to bring this in. And, you had to sell them like this creative idea for why they would want to bring this into their sales floor. So it was kind of like fun to think of a new like seasonal display that will kind of edge you over the next sales guy. Cause we're all like pitching for floor space. Like it's just a big fight for ground. So you kind of had to use like your creative side to win out. But building the displays was a lot of fun.
So how did you use your creative side? Because being in the, I know because being in the grocery industry, that shelf space and floor space, there's always an argument, a fight for that. How did you differentiate yourself to get that extra space?
I always tried to keep it very seasonal, just kind of like everyone else. If there's a holiday or something that was going on, or try to utilize space that normally you wouldn't utilize, it was like a running theme with me where I knew it's always tight for space on the floor because, they don't want to have, they don't want to give you everything. So I was really good at hanging stuff from the ceiling. Like
Right.
they would have, like you'll see like big banners that, like Safeway or Kroger will hang from the ceiling. So I would use their big magnets and hang a display from the ceiling. So, you'd be walking under this display and then you could just pack all your wine real tight underneath. So I was pretty good at like making a very tight, effective display. So I would get all the product in that I wanted, but not take up all the space. So we both kind of would always win. So I was like that, and I never dropped anything. I never broke anything, which was
That's hard to do, especially during the
yeah,
holiday season, right? When you're rushed around everything. So you
right.
brought a little bit of innovation to your skill set, right? That's
Yeah,
interesting.
I was had a lot of fun with it, and it allowed me to. My parents always hated it, but I collect old junk, if you will. So like, I think one of my favorite displays was I collect old vintage like Coleman lanterns and camping gear and stuff.
Right.
And I would hang all that from the ceilings, and like a lot of people really liked that display. That was a requested display that would come back like for other stores, like because all the store directors and whatnot would talk with each other. So they're, one of my stores would hear, well, why'd they get that? Well, we want that display. And so it would sell you into other stores.
Wow.
I remember one of my other favorite displays was it was for yellowtail wine. I'm real into airplanes as well. So, I was thinking on the theme of like tail, or like, okay, what can I do with that? And I got the winery to literally buy me the very back end of an airplane. So like there's a tail of an airplane. It was all painted yellow, and just trying to like that was another display that went all over my stores. So,
If
once
you can get an owner,
all my stores could talk with each other, like if I did one really well, it would kind of like sell itself for me throughout the rest of the chains.
so you would say your persona with customers is more on the innovation side, because a lot of salespeople, they're more into the metric side of the whole thing, right? They want to, every month or every quarter, you have to hit a number, and it gets monotonous that way. And I'm not the one that's more into the metric side. Even being in sales leadership, I'm not really into the metric side of it all, as I am with the innovation. So I love the fact that you brought some creativity. So do you bring that into your calls today still? Has that transitioned you into, when you make your sales calls, bring that creativity?
It's with my grocery stores that I have, that's what I try and do. The majority of mine are usually pretty price conscious, so it makes it a little bit harder, but we'll try and move that innovation into specific areas, usually like grab and go or like high visibility areas where people are like really kind of like buying with their eyes. They'll allow me to kind of move things differently, or maybe like, yeah, this one might cost a little more, but you'll probably move more. Like a lot of those kind of conversations we'll have in those higher impact areas. So that's been somewhere that I've been trying to work that in.
Right. During your college days, what did you have an epiphany about sales? What got you into sales? Because I know you were more of on the business admin side, right? What made you think about sales?
I actually just like drive. It worked well for like wine sales because I could just, all my stores are all over the place. So I'm just like driving around, talking to different people. I really like that I don't have to, I'm not stagnant. I get very bored very quickly. So I'm like, all right, I've been here for an hour. I'm out of here. I'm going somewhere else. Like, so you're kind of always driving around and touching everywhere, talking to everyone. I really like just the being out and about, kind of like in the community, if you will.
So it was more the attraction of being out with people, being out in the public, not be behind a desk, and the routine every day, showing up 8 to 5. This gave you more flexibility, right?
Yeah, like I know a lot of people go, oh, COVID was nice because I got to work from home. It was neat for me for about a month, and then I was like, all right, I got to get out of here. I gotta go. So because I'm just so used to being out and about, I really just like the, route sale. I like the route sales, but also having the opportunity with kind of just growing your sales in any direction that you want. That was one tough thing about wine sales. It was, this is your route, do not stray. That was it felt very limiting. So it's nice to be, here at Bunzl, kind of like the world's your oyster, go get it.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, because there's so much opportunity within Bunzl with the verticals that we have here. You have the RD side, you have the grocery side, you have the food processor side. These are different verticals. The question I have, I know you work all three of these areas. I know the R3 side, you just mentioned grocery, and also the processor side. These are all different verticals. Which one do you find more challenging, or if you do?
I actually think grocery is pretty hard, and because a lot of the time we're seeing a very big shift here in the Pacific Northwest from like a lot of smaller chains to now it's a real big consolidation. Albertsons and Hagen's and Safeway, like Fred Meyer to Kroger, like there's a real big consolidation. So you're losing a lot of the independent thought that all the grocery stores that were independent had and how they could differentiate themselves. And now they're really tightening up. Like they're more ran by a board, and they're really starting to be run by, does it make dollars or does it make sense? Like there's a lot of those. So I'd say the grocery world is getting more difficult because they're really starting to be price conscious over the last couple of years, especially since COVID.
Yeah, and price conscious. is always, I mean, that's all, you're always going to get to that topic with any of the verticals you get into. What about when you're the sell cycle with a food processor? How different is that from, let's say, on the RD side versus grocery?
Well, I guess technically I have two now. I just signed one this week, but I really just have one processor, and they are national. They're a very, very big brand name, and they're usually run off of their contracts, and like they're very two spec. So that's a difficult aspect with them is, you have to sell within their box.
Right.
So you kind of have to look for, you have to like take a step back and be like, okay, I'm not just going to look at, can I sell you these little boxes, or can I sell you this film or whatever? Like I have to take a step back and like look at their whole facility and see like, okay, what else in the facility can I sell you? Or do you buy anything from anyone else? Or let's just go take a tour around the plant. Like what can I see, or what can I find that maybe you're buying from, oh, I just buy this off Amazon, or, whatever, that maybe I can just say, oh, hey, I saw that too. Let me throw you a quote.
Yeah. Well, it's when you reference, the national account type business. I mean, we're in sales, you're in sales. And when you get into that national account regimen, pretty much what is being sold to that customer has already been predetermined. So as you walk around that warehouse, you go, well, I can't sell that because it's not on the contract yet. So it's got to be a little frustrating, right? Because you're kind of locked into.
Mm-hmm. Or like, if you do, you have to say, okay, well, maybe just handwrite me a PO and, just write your numbers on there, Just,
there goes your innovation, right? Yeah.
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 How can we walk around this?
Exactly. Yeah, it's a different skill set, right? If you're trapped in, it's not so much being trapped, but you have confinements with national accounts versus where you can actually, in the grocery and RD side, you can actually look at certain things. There's broadliners that you do business with, I understand that, but there's areas that you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to go out and grow your sales, right?
Mm-hmm. What it was, one nice thing about COVID is it broke a lot of people's rigidity, like with the national account. Like usually they're like, we have to have this. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. We only want this. And with COVID, it's like you can't have it. Like no one has it. We can't get it. So it forced them to say, okay, well maybe we can use this. So like it's been nice with those national accounts. I'm trying to like keep that. Well, you can't have this, but there's this. So it keeps fires a lot lower. Like there's not as many like, like, oh, well, this is going to be a big ordeal. Like we can't get this item. So what are we going to do? Like we got to escalate this. It's like, no, it's okay. We can just use this. And I'm trying to keep like flexibility from COVID still alive and try and keep things very loose and limber, like on the national account side.
Right. And as a salesperson, you have to remain flexible, right? Because your customer who have, when we came out of the pandemic, there was a whole different set of people you had to deal with. I know a lot of us were sidelined during that pandemic, and, the people we normally saw, we didn't. There was a lot of influx of the C-suite type level people coming into our Zoom meetings. And that was because of the fact that they wanted to know more about our industry. They saw the price increases. They saw the price changes. They saw how hard it was in the supply chain. So they wanted to get more involved. Were you comfortable with dealing with the C-suite?
It was, kind of like jumping onto a podcast for the first time. It was a little like, a little nerve wracking at first, but once you kind of get into it, you feel okay. I think what helped was, since we all had to work so hard to try and just get anything done during COVID, and you're starting to relay this information, and I think a lot of those guys started to figure out like, oh, okay, well, you really have tried this, you really have tried this, you really have tried that. Like you can kind of lay down all this work that you had to do to sort of alleviate well, what are you doing for us? Like why are we having so many problems? And I think once we had just more conversations with the C-suite, it just became the comfort level rose a lot. And now it's weird to be like, oh, I'm just gonna send them an email, or I'm just gonna say or ask them whenever I need to, or I feel like a lot more comfortable with that level now.
Yeah. And the point that, the whole, we had a lot of the chief financial officers, they wanted to join the conversation because they were so interested in why this industry was just taking this seismic shift in different directions. And even especially with, supply chain being tough and the amount of products being, very limited. And we went from selling to be more a consultative type sell, and your point about communications, because the communication portion, I thought at first, over the first 3-4 months of the pandemic, you're talking about, 2020, January till about March, April-ish, it was pretty hairy in there. And so the CFOs and, the chief, data officers, they wanted to know why this was all going on. And I think the communication with them, and they were fun to work with because they had a lot of questions. And so the persona of those type people are different than, your normal security buyer or people that you deal with. So you have to make your own personal change with that. As a salesperson, do you find yourself more on the metric side of it or more the creative side?
I'm pretty bad with metrics. I mean, I can do it all, I can do, I've learned how to do like pivot tables, VLOOKUPs. I can do all the Excel. Like I've had a lot of people who are really good working within our system, like AS400. Like I can pull a lot of data out there and manipulate it the way that I want to, but I have a very hard time, like, my brain still wants to say, okay, well now I have this. I want to go out here and show them. I can kind of high spot it, and I really just like to boil it down to just a couple sentences. So I'm not good, or I'm not strong at, I think, the metric side. I'm definitely much more apt at the relationship side, like always being there, always having a conversation, seeing how I can be a better partner, and usually just kind of like always answering their questions, always being there to talk to them, just see what's going on. But no, I can and do a lot of the metric side, but I usually kind of just sit with it for myself, like just to make sure that we're in line, numbers are trending, like do we have enough inventory on hand? So like I do a lot of that, but it's really just for just to make sure my business is where it needs to be.
Right. How long did it take you to feel comfortable in your own skin as a salesperson? How long did, from the wine sales days from college wine sales days to where you're at today, how long did it take you?
Oh, I still get the yips all the time.
You get very comfortable, right?
I got really comfortable, with wine, by the end of it, you could send me to go do anything for anyone and I'd be fine because, I knew basically everyone anyways. So nothing was new to me. But coming to Bunzl, I remember when I was doing my interview, I was like, oh, what's the, probation time or whatever you want to call it? Is it like 60, 90 days? They're like, no, probably like 3 years. I was like, what? Because I didn't know anything about packaging, nothing. The only thing I knew was from my father, and he sold, Dalco for 20 years. And I made it a personal decision to never be in the packaging industry because my dad that's all he did. And I was like, this is the most boring thing I've ever seen in my life.
Right.
And then that's exactly somehow what I ended up doing. But it took me 3 years to really get comfortable just because there's so many product lines, there's so many manufacturers, there's so many levels of like how far back in the supply chain are we looking at stuff. Like it took a long time for me to, and I still, don't know everything certainly at all. Like I still ask a lot of questions. So, but I feel I'd say after about the 3-year mark is when I was really like, okay, you can turn me loose and I'm not going to do too much damage.
Right. Yeah. Back on your point, long hours, like your dad, long hours, getting beat up by customers all the time, worrying about products, boring, but we're still in it. It's the packaging sales. When you get into an organization as big as we are, and you're looking at 50 to 60,000 SKUs that you can sell versus wine sales where you have a limited purview or limited scope of items, right?
Right.
You know, it resonates with you very quickly on how big of an organization this is and how you really don't get comfortable very long because everything changes, especially, you know, post-pandemic, how, you know, we were very comfortable salespeople dealing with our day-to-day operational side of sales with customers and knowing the personas of the customers. That all changed. And, you know, back to your point about being flexible, having to be flexible in this industry. Is there any epiphany you had as a salesperson, you know, that changed your view on how to sell certain customers? Did you have that aha moment?
Really just for one, it felt like a real big shift for me. That was when I was asked to take over a national account processor. And I went in and there was a very different tone. Like when I walked in, I think they were expecting like a sales guy. They're like, great, what is this guy gonna try and like do? Who is he? What does he want? There, you know, it's like it's like if I were walking like into my girlfriend's house for the first time and I'm meeting her parents, I go, who are you? What are you doing? It's like
Exactly.
so
right.
it was a lot of that. And I was like, no, just here hanging out. Like I'm just here to chat, talk to you about your business, see where you're at, like, you know, and just slowly start to move into, I'm just your partner. I'm just here to help. Like, and then once, I'd say after about 5-6 weeks, you know, we're sitting there and I have a weekly standing meeting and you know, my buyer goes, you know, this is just great. Like, I really feel like we have a partner. I don't worry about disposables now. Like, I feel like everything is just where it needs to be and it's very calm and relaxed.
Right.
Like, and all I did was just show up and be there. And I kind of like liken that to like, I don't have many standing meetings with with only a couple of my customers. So that I kind of went back to like my old like route sales. If I had an account that was really on edge or upset or anything like that, I'm like, just spend time there, just hang out. So, you know, that's what I would try to do is just go there and hang out. And that's when I really leaned on my old kind of style of selling.
Right. Yeah. And I want to say a lot of times, you know, as new salespeople, if they were to make, you know, big mistakes, and I've always asked this to a lot of the beginners in sales, you know, if they had to think back to 2-3 years ago, what they did, then what they do today, a lot of them say, to your point, is that whenever I made a sales call and the customer, I started to actually engage with that customer, boom, right away, sales face went on, the sales voice came out, and the customer knew immediately I was trying to sell them something, right? Mm-hmm. And that's when the barriers of communication, you can just almost see like bricks in a wall being built. They start thinking, oh, this guy, you know, Biggs is trying to sell me something. So
right.
you came at it with this particular customer where we were in a negative position, and you turned it around by being more of the consultative type salesperson. Your game face, your sales voice didn't come on. So how were you able, what was the transition point for your customer at that point in time? Because was it more, you know, metric from the salesperson before, or is it now the consultative role that you took with her with the buyer was different, right?
Mm-hmm. It's definitely more of a consultation role now. Now, it used to be where she would give me all this information and say, I want answers back on all this stuff. Or you need to tell me where this and that and the other. And now it's very much like, hey, this is where we stand with our inventory. And then I will usually take my inventory and I'll cross them together and figure out where we're at and say, oh, you know what, we're fine. So if I say that we're fine, then she goes, okay, and that's it. Just walks away, says we're good. Or if I think, hey, we need to pull this in, or we need to worry about this, like then we'll start to have those conversations. And she really does put a lot of trust into like how I manage and look at our numbers. Because like I said, this is my one main processor, and that was a very new aspect that I never really had to worry about. Was like, we have a truckload of cut produce that needs to be in a package immediately. I can't live with the answer that, oh, it's 3 weeks out. Right. So it was a very, I will say those first 6 weeks were very nerve-wracking. It was like, don't screw it up, don't screw it up, don't screw it up. So I was very like, don't run out, don't run out, don't run out. Like, but when I was there talking with them, it was like, we're okay, I'll figure it out. If anything's wrong, I will do all the work and then come back to you with the solution or the best solution that I could find. And it's a process, but we're in a much better spot now.
Would you say that was a learned behavior that you had? I mean, a lot of times, if I ask that question to other salespeople, they might have a different, definition of how they got there, or a different way, a different manner. Was yours more it just came natural to you to be more on the consultation portion of it, or
I think I got a light dose of what supply chain and logistics was like with wines, because it is an agricultural product. So like if someone's out, like a warehouse, the producer, you're out. Like I can't say, sorry, we're out of 2017 Kendall Jackson. I can't just get you more because it's gone. So I had to start thinking of like more solutions, like up front for a customer. Because when you're with a customer long enough, you're probably going to know what's going to come up or what they want or how they want it to be. So you already kind of are primed to say, all right, I think this is going to happen. What solution should I try and come up with, or what can I offer as like a consultation? Like this is how I think we should do this, because this is not going to work. So I think that helped me for my Bunzl career, but there are about 50 more levels to deal with on the Bunzl side than just
exactly the complication of it all.
Right.
It's a very, enterprise sales meaning the more complex sales are more difficult to deal with, especially in food processor where you have perishables. Perishables are sitting on my dock. I just got done, cutting all this fresh cut produce and I need it sold. It's already been sold and I need to get it in a container, and the container's not here. So it kind of gives you, that edge, that the importance, the urgency level from that customer is a lot different than on the RD side, even though the urgency is on any of our customer side. But when you have knowing that product can go bad very quickly and you are the cause of it, it really puts, some urgency in your step. What would you do differently today than you would like 5 years ago? You've been in sales quite a few years. Is there anything that you would do differently to bring your game to the next level?
Learn I guess now it's Beacon, but like learn, like if I were to start out 5 years ago and Beacon was just starting then, I would tell myself 5 years ago, like learn these tools as best and as quickly as you can. Because, before I never used, I used Excel, but only to look at one sheet that my boss was pointing to me for, being like, your numbers are down, go fix it. And then I would go. So like, I never really learned a lot of that, like using your data and your tools to your advantage, because I didn't really have to do that a lot back then, but I do now. And it, like, the more I learn, the more useful it is. And it actually brings my comfort level into a much better region, because I see like, oh, okay, everything's good here. Like my inventory levels are good, usage rates are good. Like I can use these tools to better look at my business. And especially with Beacon, I'm still in the learning phase on that. Like once you learn how to use it, you can really track your business, and it actually makes it a good presentation tool. I've used some of the tables and graphs and charts and stuff in Beacon to be like, go to my customer, like, hey, this is how you're trending, or this is how you're tracking. And it's just simple enough to where they can look at it and see what's going on and understand. And it's a very impressive looking thing to bring to your customers.
Right. And, being a subject matter expert on certain products, I mean, that gets you somewhere with the customer, but you need to have that personality. You have to have the vision. You have to have a little bit of financial understanding of the organization. And I find it that the more you know about a customer's business, as much as they know, that plays an important part in the customer's eyes.
Yeah, that's another thing I like about. I have a couple, like I said, I have a couple weekly customers that I have contacts with, like, and I'm very open with my information with them,
Right.
and a lot of people are like, oh, you got to keep everything close, play it tight. I'm usually like, here it is, here's everything you want to know. I'm usually very open about everything, and the more tools I use from the system, like just tracking inventory and stuff I've learned from some of the people in our office, like how to do like a VLOOKUP in Excel. You can start to pull all this information into one sheet.
Right.
And so like when I go into these meetings and say, here's our inventory, here's your inventory, this is your average usage, we're good. Like it's very easy to make yourself comfortable and the customer comfortable, like with this information that you can have.
Right. Would you say what differentiates yourself from everybody else that buyer sees? I mean, just whatever, whether you're in your RD, whether you're processor, whether grocery, does your not putting the game face on, putting the sales voice in place, putting this, being more open with the customer, being open with the customer is fine, because that's how you build the trust, credibility, rapport, respect from a customer. Is if you just take yourself out of the sales voice, area, right?
Mm-hmm. A lot of it is me just trying to help my buyer, my customer, my manager, whoever I'm working with, like making them good at their job. The better I can make them at their job and be like, I don't worry about your aspect of this. Now it's, oh, I can't get my X, Y, and Z from some other vendor. Like, but you guys are great. Like, the more I can help my customers be effective, I feel like that's helped me a lot in like my relationship building, because they can rely on me. They know I'm there to help them and not just, sometimes it's to say, no, don't buy something. Like, you don't need it. Don't, just wait. So they keep their inventory levels in check, or it lets them know that like, I'm not only trying to sell something. Sometimes
Right.
it's better to not sell them something.
Yeah, because they'll pick you off right immediately. This guy's just trying to sell me something, and that doesn't come, genuine to a lot of customers. They pick that off right away. Mm-hmm. How important was it, or is it in your sales career, to have a mentor?
Here it was very important, because I came into this industry completely green. So I relied on my boss. Now I feel like everyone's my boss, but at that point in time, my one particular boss was Eddie Kleiner. He's still my boss, or one of my bosses, but I wear a Fitbit. I sit back at my desk, and his desk is down at the other end of the sales hall. I get at least 10 to 15,000 steps a day, because I'm back and forth, just like at my desk. Walk down, go ask him a question. Walk down, go ask him a question. Walk down, go ask him a question. And his door was always open, no matter how busy something was going on. He would always just say, "Yeah, come in, you're fine." Like, having someone there to answer your questions, whether it's product related, customer related, anything involved. He was always willing to answer the question, or at least reach out to someone who would know. Attach me on there.
Right. And you'll have coaches throughout your career, any type of sales job, but a mentor is somebody that's going to be there for a lifetime with you, right? And you have to feel comfortable with that type of a mentor. What are some things that you look in a mentor for? What are some qualification characteristics that you like?
They're calm.
I'm
usually, I kind of know my personality. I'm really good at matching energy levels. So
right.
or really bad at matching energy. Like, so if someone comes in real hot, real high, my instinct is to want to go right up there with them. So I always have to try and notch myself down and try and reel it into where I want it to go. So for me, like if I'm already at an 11 and I walk into my mentor or Eddie's office, I generally want him to already be calm and just say, hey man, it's fine. It's not the end of the world.
Right.
So I generally need a mentor who can kind of bring me back down to earth.
Right. And you told me about, your sports career when you were, you played sports in college and high school and all that. And that's important. The coaches are the ones that are in your face all the time. They want to, get you hyped up, bring the best out of you. But a mentor like an Eddie is the one that's going to be the voice of reason, that's going to be calm. Talk through this situation with me, Biggs. Tell me what's going on, right? And you have that voice of reason that's going to just work things out for you instead of being critical of you. Tell me what you think you did right. Tell me what you think you might want to improve upon, right? And that's what a good mentor does. I've had a lot of mentors in my life, and I keep at least 4 very close to me within this organization. I know what I call the anti-mentors, right? The people that I don't want to be mentors with or be mentored by. So you have to be comfortable with that mentor. And, your point again is, knowing how to read you when you come in the room, you're hyped up, you have something going on, how to just calm you down, right? That's important.
Right. Yeah. I did play sports forever, like basketball, football, rugby, swim team, wrestling, baseball, like all of it. So, you're used to like everyone was just getting amped all the time. So like, right. I'm used to like, just turn it up, like go get it. So it's very hard to say like, all right, just calm down. We're going to be fine. Let's just think about it.
Right. Exactly.
It's definitely good to have or even know, like you said, like who's a good mentor or a bad mentor for you. Because sometimes I do want to go to a specific person to elicit a specific reaction. Like if I know that sometimes if I know I'm like, oh, I've been lacking on this, or I'm getting behind, or I've not been doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'll go to a particular person because I know if they have visibility or I tell them where I'm at, I'm really going to be a lot more motivated to get it done.
Yeah. And again, the mentor is so important because there's so many aspects of your career and you can it's okay to have more than one mentor because I have, ones that are more financial mentors to me because the financial part, when you start talking about ROI, return on investments, if you start talking about, liquidity and you're talking about the P&L, those are difficult areas to just learn overnight. I mean, you have to have a need or want or a penchant to want to, take on that type of information. So I need always somebody to mentor me and motivate me, I guess, in that area. So yeah, it's very important. Biggs, I really, really appreciate your time today. How do people reach out or connect with you if they want to get a hold of you?
Probably the easiest way is just to look for me on LinkedIn. So my name is a little easier to find because if you look at, so everyone calls me Biggs, by the way. I'm sure you've already called me that, but my dad gave me that nickname the day I was born. So everyone calls me that. Even like the first, but before we were dating or married, my wife, before any of that, she must have known me for 10 years. And we were at by that time, we're dating now. She's like at one of my family events, and my grandmother, who refuses to call me by my nickname, she only calls me Scott. And my girlfriend at the time was like,
What?
I was like, yeah, Scott. She's like, who's what? So, oh, my real name is Scott. She was like, we're literally dating and I don't even know your real name.
Oh, geez.
So yeah, most people call me Biggs, but if you want to find me on LinkedIn, it's Scott with 1 T, SCOT. Last name is Wiggins, Wiggins.
All right. Thank you.